Welcome to Your Asian Besties, a podcast where we reflect on our life experiences and what's helping us along the way. I'm Marin.
I'm Ray.
And I'm Leah.
Each episode, we talk about a topic, unscripted and unfiltered. Today, we'll be talking about astrology and personality types and all that fun stuff. It'll kind of be a get-to-know-you episode. Okay, so I guess it's a funny coincidence that we're all INFJs, I believe. Mm-hmm. Even though sometimes when I take the quiz, I can teeter on E and I.
Same.
And then we're all mostly Libras. We're like 2.5 Libras. I'm a cusp, so I'm a Virgo Libra. And then DeRay and Leah are both Libras. So I don't know. I guess we can talk about maybe how we got into this, like maybe when we took our first personality quiz or how we got into astrology. I think I maybe took the Myers Briggs test in my 20s first. It kind of became a thing, I think, in association with like when you're trying to figure out what career you want to be in, seeing like what your strengths are. And so I would consistently get that INFJ. And then I think I went through a phase where I was way more social and I got an E for extroversion. And then I think astrology I got into when I started dating in LA again, like in my early 30s. And I just needed some sense of control and like who to filter out. So I got really into it at that point. So I'm curious for you two, if you have any first memories with personality tests or astrology.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. I'm also on the cusp. I'm a Libra Scorpio cusp. So I guess
that's right.
I guess that means there are two Libras, right?
Or what was your cusp called? The cusp of mystery or something?
No, it's the cusp of drama and criticism.
So
you
like the worst.
You have the glasses. You have the glasses for it.
Oh my gosh, so funny. But Leah, I'm wondering for you, when did you get into it?
I don't remember the Myers Briggs, but I definitely remember I loved reading the newspaper when I was little. I'd go straight to the comic section. It was the living category of the newspaper. And next to the comics were always the horoscopes. And I would always read it. I'd always read the Libra section. And, magically, like, most of it resonated. Of course, this was when I was in elementary school. So, like, the romance stuff was, But it was always fun to read.
Yeah, I feel like when you went to the grocery stores, wasn't there little books or something at
and
the
little
checkout
scrolls?
line? This was before the internet.
Yes.
When we grew up.
And yeah, I mean, I don't think I took it seriously, but it was always fun to kind of like a fortune cookie, like, what's my day going to be like? And then, something ominous or something, like something exciting will happen today. And I remember thinking like, oh, it'd be cool to actually experience it. But by the end of the day, I would never remember what I read. So I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I was always into astrology and personality. And, I was reading like a post on social media the other day that said people who are neurodivergent tend to become fascinated with personality or, things like you were talking about, Marin, the control over having an understanding of what the inner landscape of your mind looks like, right? And what compatibility looks like in other people with other people's minds. And I recently, I guess, over the past 3-4 years, realized that I was neurodivergent. And it kind of made me realize I got into personality because I never felt like people understood me. And so it was like trying to understand also the social dynamics of why does it feel like these people just click and they know how to connect and they know how to do things. And there are all of these unwritten rules that they just somehow know. And I just never knew them. And so I think for me, looking at the horoscope or looking for my personality type kind of gave me a sense of, oh, this is the reason you're different. That's the reason you guys don't communicate well on this. And so if you want to know that person better, you need to know that, this was before even love languages existed, right? So it was like, this is kind of the love language of the mind, and this is how you connect with people. And so I think for me, it was especially important because that was how I decoded my social life.
Yeah, and that was when Leah was speaking. It unlocked the memory of like all those magazines that we that we read as teens. They would, I think, always have a horoscope section on there, and yeah, it was totally about like love life. Even if we didn't have much of a love life back then, it was just fun to think about. So maybe I actually found an article on the INFJ, so I know the first letter is for introversion versus extroversion. And then let me see the second one. The funny thing is with the introversion extroversion, like I think the definition is about your energy, right? So do you get energy when you're out around people, or does it suck energy out of you? And so I think there's a bit of a misconception because a lot of people think of introverts as being super shy or socially awkward, which I don't think the three of us are. I think we can all be very social. You're
so
not,
socially
I know you think you are, but you're really not.
Yeah, agree.
You're way more of a people person.
You're a people person.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I think the thing about energy is totally true, because I can sometimes get a high off of being around people, but then I do need a break. Like I couldn't do it day in and day out. So I definitely identify with that part. And what's the N stand for?
Intuitive.
Intuition.
Oh, that's right. Intuitive. I think that's true. Well, I think I've leaned more into that side of things for myself, like always looking inward, being introspective.
Yeah, I think so too. But also, I've noticed that in this new era, I'm sort of trying to shift to the other side of all of this in some kind of way. And so I'm trying to be more grounded in the external world and be more understanding of how facts work and how logic works and how other people work. So I'm trying to make myself towards the S a little bit, which is more sensing and gleaning data, I guess, from other people.
Yeah. So it's the INFJ is introverted, intuitive, feeling, and judging.
Yep.
So yeah, I think you're right. It's kind of like as we took these quizzes, I'm assuming it's kind of just what comes naturally to us, or maybe what's most comfortable to us. And I do feel the same way too. Like I have to kind of get in touch with my senses more and like work on that part of it. So I'm trying to see. I think it says that this is actually one of the rare personality types.
So it's rare we're all INFJs.
I know.
Yeah.
One thing it says here, I'm looking under the 16 personalities.
Mm-hmm.
It says that we're compassionate personalities and that success doesn't come from money or status, but from seeking fulfillment, helping others, and being a force for good in the world. Does that resonate with you guys?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so, but I mean, there's still an underlying, like, I'd like to be, like, financially successful, but I think the overarching, but it but you want to do what feels right or what brings meaning. Like, I wouldn't want to make money for the sake of doing something I completely don't believe in or is totally against what, the mission that I want to follow. So, yeah.
That's exactly what it says here. The next line is what Leah just said. So it says people with this personality type care about integrity, and they're rarely satisfied until they've done what they know to be right. Mm-hmm. They're very conscientious. They move through life with a clear sense of their values and try to never lose sight of what truly matters. So I guess that might be the intuitive part. Because I definitely resonate with that. I feel like I was never able to get fully motivated by titles, prestige, money. I almost wish I was more motivated by those things, like, because of the world we live in. But I think maybe with our personality type, it's kind of like the payoff comes a little bit later because we're always sort of reflecting, along the way, and not necessarily going for like what we think society tells us success looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting. I actually haven't taken the quiz in a while, so I wonder if it would have shifted at all since we've been working on kind of the opposite sides. Yeah.
Yeah. Adam Grant, I don't know if you guys subscribe to his newsletter, but maybe like several months ago, he shared a post saying he's fallen out of love with Myers Briggs because it's not based in science. It's based on it's not based on research. It's based on me search or we search or something along those lines. And I know that in psychology or like more serious, studious, academic, science-y settings, they use the ocean test, right? The big five.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like that one, the extroversion, introversion is still a really big hallmark of that test. So I like, the Myers-Briggs better because it just gives me more words and more constructs, and it's easier to talk about in settings like this with friends. And there are just more departure points to be like, oh, I'm more like this, or this is kind of how I see the world or how I think. And there's a lot more language and it's a little more fun. And so, yeah, I don't know. I haven't taken the Myers-Briggs for a really long time, but I have since taken the big five. And I do think that for me, it's been the same. But I'm curious for you, Leah, if you've taken it recently or
not recently, but I have. Oh, fairly. I want to say I took it like a year or two ago. So yeah, it was still INFJ. I remember I've taken a few times. I've hit INFJ all the time, but there's also this A versus what's the other one? You're either an advocate or you're turbulent, I think. And it's like INFJ.
Oh yeah, that's what it was saying on the
Yeah.
website. I never
I'm
seen
turbulent.
that before.
And I wavered between in my 20s I was turbulent. And then now I'm back to the A. So I've seen that change, but yeah. I know both of you mentioned that you've been extroverts. I've never hit that, but at work, and I know we'll get to this more in a little bit, but at work, people are surprised when I tell them I'm an introvert. And what I think it is, and I wonder if this holds true for both of you, is I enjoy deep and meaningful conversations and one-on-ones and things like this. That gives me energy. If it's like more than like 2+ people, then like I get so drained after. But yeah, there's something about just really intimate conversations that go beyond like the weather and, pop culture. If you start talking about life and things like this, personality, why do we think the way we do? Then yeah, you could not mistake me for an introvert in those environments.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that too. I feel like energized after we have our podcast recordings and we could be speaking for hours. I know Dre and I have gone on like 5-hour FaceTime chats.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But yeah, I totally agree. I mean, because in my work, I used to have to be like a networking person and I'd have to go into these events and I can do it. I don't know if it's just because I built up that muscle. It's really easy for me to just like talk to anybody. But I agree. I sometimes get a bit of claustrophobia now. Like when I'm around like a lot of people, I start to get a little bit of sensory overload, I think. Maybe, I don't know if it's just age or because of COVID, but I try to avoid big groups of people now.
Yeah, I think I was a classroom teacher for about 15 years. And so I think the E really came from pushing myself to have to be in that performance mode. Um, but I also realized that there is a way to be an educator and an introvert and still be successful or still maintain your sanity, which is that you're just thinking of your classroom as, 20, 30 individual one-on-ones. And it's hard because it's like you have a bunch of tabs open. And so you're constantly going back and forth. But I feel like that's the only way that I've been able to balance that energy, and for my need of like personal connection. And something I was thinking about is, Marin, you were talking about how you can't do networking events anymore because you feel claustrophobic. And you know what that brought up for me is I wonder, like, in our internal minds, what we are doing um, when we are connecting with other people. Because when I'm with, like you said, Leah, there are two or more people, it feels draining. And for me, it's because I'm constantly assessing everybody's needs. And when there are more than two other people, I can't assess everybody's needs to the extent that I enjoy the conversation, because I start getting really nervous and scared, and I'm like picking up on threats and like, is this person going to say something that this other person is going to find offensive? And then is there going to be a fight and I'm going to have to come in and mediate or control? And I feel like for me, there's always that survival, like threat instinct, the fight or flight that comes in. And that's why I feel very uncomfortable in situations where there are more than two people. But then again, if I'm in a group of like family members or friends that I've known for 10, 15 years, I can socialize. It does drain me, but I don't have that constant fight or flight. And so I'm just curious for you both, if what's happening inside your mind and how it, interplays with your nervous system or any of that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because my husband, I don't, because as you were speaking, it kind of reminded me of the HSP thing, the highly sensitive person, which I think I sort of identify with it. I mean, that was sort of what made me good with people, is that I can read them. I feel like I can read the energy, and I go out and do events for my business now, and I can kind of sense people. Like when they come up to my booth, like I can tell if they want me to talk to them or if they don't, it's just like, I guess that's where maybe the intuitive part comes in. But my husband is maybe not as sensitive. I don't know if it's his personality or just because he's a man, but I like what Doreen's talking about. When we go to a restaurant, he loves to just like take his time with the menu. Like he'll really take his time. And then I can feel the energy of the waiter like getting anxious, and then it makes me really anxious. That was something I really had to actually work on in our relationship, because I would get anxiety every time we got to eat. But he's just in his own world, like focused on, like I want to figure out what I'm going to order. So it is interesting. And I think it can be definitely like a strength that you can use, but it's also really easy to get burnt out or overloaded, and to be like, I just feel like I'm so much more selective about the people and the environments that I'm in now, because I really realize how much it affects me. So when I'm like driving, and now I'm happily married, but when I drive past there's a sports bar down the street from us, and every time I drive past it, it's just like packed with people. I've been in there, and it's like a sticky floor, and I'm just like, oh, thank God I don't have to do that anymore. It just looks like a nightmare, but there's so many people, some people love that. So it's interesting. Yeah, what about you, Leah?
So the thoughts that were popping into my head is I work fully remotely, so I still work a 9 to 5. And some of my favorite times are when I'm prepared and I'm presenting something, even if it's a large group of people, if I'm leading the meeting and I know what I want to say and I'm the one trying to convey something, and it feels fine. And I've noticed lately I've gotten really uncomfortable during meetings where we have all hands where there's 60 people and someone calls me out like for a good thing, like saying like, "Oh, Leah did da da da," and, and I feel those eyes on me and I don't know how to react, and I just like I feel my face just like I'm just like shutting down, like, okay, like let's move on. Like people are looking at me. And Dre, I resonated when you said that it's not people pleasing, but there is something when it's larger groups of people. If I'm not the one driving the meeting and I'm the one, like listening, like a participant, and I want to ask something, I do this mental check of everyone in the room, what the vibe is, or what I feel like every person, how are they going to perceive what I'm about to say? How should I say? It's a lot of overthinking. And that's probably why it feels so draining, is because I'm not only trying to convey the message so I'm communicating clearly, but I want it to fall the right way for every person in the room. And I don't know why. I never thought about that before, but it is a lot of work now that I'm saying it out loud. It is, yeah, if there's one person that I know is going to react negatively, or if I say something and then I catch the person like wanting to say something, I immediately like, send them a message and say like, "Oh, we can chat about this after," or "That's not what I meant," or right. So I don't know. I don't know if that's what highly sensitive is. Do you have a definition? Because I've heard that term before, but I never thought I was.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
But
I was curious, was this pattern like present from when you were kids? Like Leah, what you're describing about the meetings, like were you the kids that, would raise your hand in class, or would you overthink it? Because I was definitely an overthinker, and I was like, even if I had a question, I'd be like, well, how is this going to appear? I was like so self-conscious about it. And then I'm like, I'll just figure it out later,
I
So I'm curious because I know like part of, I think our grades were about participation,
yeah.
and some kids would just like confidently like ask any question. Like I had this friend who asked the dumbest questions, had no fear, just would ask every single question. And I think it's a good skill, but it's just something that was hard for me.
I laugh because
Yeah.
I would only raise my hand if I knew the answer. I wouldn't raise my hand to ask a question. I would
Right.
raise my hand because I knew the answer. So what does that
The
say?
only time I would ask a question is if I knew already the
The
answer to the question.
Yes, that too.
Because I was so insecure. And, as you were talking about that, Leah and Marin, like just that discomfort and that anxiety and that overthinking, something that I work on in therapy with my therapist is my OCD and that constant rumination of thought of like trying to perceive how other people are going to perceive me. And I kind of trace that back to my own like childhood wounds of being misunderstood or being questioned, or like my inferiority complex of feeling like I just didn't understand the world, and I didn't think that, and just kind of feeling that ostracization of like, and part of it is, being Asian and feeling like I'm not allowed to be there, like I don't belong. And so the childhood wounds of not feeling like I belong and feeling like I'm unworthy of people's time and attention, kind of contributed and still contributes in many ways, if I'm not conscious of it, to me feeling like I don't deserve the same amount of attention or time as everybody else. And so when you say that, Leah, it really like hurts my heart. And I just wonder, like, does being an introvert and having that social anxiety come from the trauma of not feeling like we belong?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was thinking is when you raise your hand in a room, it's kind of you're claiming space. You have the confidence to take up space. And this desire we all had to prove ourselves, to kind of prove our worthiness, to prove that we had the right answer. It comes out of this anxiety of not belonging in the spaces we were in. So I think it is my diagnosis as a non-therapist is that maybe that's what was going on. I did pull up the definition of a highly sensitive person. It says it was a term, this is on Psychology Today. It was a term coined by psychologist Elaine Aron. So HSPs are a subset of the population who are high in a personality trait known as sensory processing sensitivity, or SPS. And so those with high levels of SPS display increased emotional sensitivity, a stronger reactivity to both external and internal stimuli, pain, hunger, light, noise, and a complex inner life.
Yes.
I have
me.
that for sure.
Oh gosh.
Because I am sensitive to light and sound. I've worked virtually for a number of years, and sometimes if someone's voice is too high pitched, I would always have to like turn it down, or just certain sounds, noises, smells. Like I've always been very particular with that.
Yeah. And so I've been the same way my entire life. I think that's kind of why art was like the only field for me that felt fitting to my personality and my needs, because I've always been sensitive to smell, sight, light, just everything. And recently I'm reading a book called The Body Keeps the Score, and he's an MD and also a psychiatrist, and he talks about a lot of different things. But from this book, I'm gleaning, and everything else people have told me and my other research, that all of these things that I used to think was part of, being the HSP or the INFJ or whatever it was, or just being an artist, I'm realizing is a dysfunction with my autonomic nervous system. And it's registering everything as a threat. And so for people who are neurotypical or who don't have like PTSD or complex PTSD, whether it's small t or big T, they don't register as every little tiny thing as a threat because they feel perfectly safe in the world. And like you were saying, Maren, like your husband does not feel like, taking his time feels like a threat to him because maybe, like you said, whether it's because he's a man or it's personality related, he's never had to feel that that was never a threat to him in the past. Whereas I think maybe for a lot of, I don't think it's a coincidence that we are 3 Asian women who are INFJs and like share, like a lot of these traumas. And I just kind of think like my current hypothesis or big question is, oh my gosh, has my nervous system just been dysregulated for the past 40 years?
Yeah, it's all that emotional labor that you're talking about, that Leah was talking about. It's just in these small examples. And I guess it has come to light more as I compare myself to my husband. just like when we go to the boba shop, like I look at the menu ahead of time, or I like wait outside with, do the QR code to make sure I know what my order is, because I do not want to be standing up there wasting
Yes.
time. So it's just all this emotional labor that all these little things we do kind of for the comfort of others, and then maybe to avoid the type of anxiety that gets triggered for us internally when we feel like we're inconveniencing somebody or making someone else uncomfortable or annoyed. That's been something that I have been trying to unlearn a bit and to fight against a little bit. Like, I think we've all had conversations where I feel like I did not express anger as an emotion until very recently. It's like my whole life I went through just like holding in my anger or any quote unquote negative feelings. And I think that definitely contributes to like the dysregulation that you're talking about, Ray. And I think it's like when you get triggered by something, it's like that fight flight. People think of fight or flight, but for me, I think I often would freeze. And so those are those moments where like questioning yourself, not raising your hand, kind of keeping it all inside. And I know Ray and I have talked about how there's higher levels of autoimmune disorders among women because of this kind of internalization that we do with all of our feelings and not wanting to like externalize them and make other people uncomfortable. It's really interesting how it's all connected. Um, yeah.
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 I don't know. This whole conversation is triggering. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm going.
I'm sorry.
No, in a good way though, because I'm making sense of things. I remember growing up, I would say I was really highly sensitive in the sense like I would cry over everything, even like Disney movies, and um I don't know. I would get teased by my sister, by family members, like that I wasn't using common sense, whatever that meant, or I was always getting rushed because I took my time. And growing up, I definitely learned to move faster, to be more efficient, to, like to stop feeling so sensitive about everything, right? And I feel like I swung the other way, like in my 20s and early 30s, where I just stopped. Like, I rarely cried or really thought about how I felt about things. And it, just, I don't know. Like I took a lot of that to heart. And it was only recently I mentioned this, I think it was when we were doing your podcast, but like I started going back into creativity, started using my right side of my brain more, and it unlocked things where I would start crying at commercials again. And I missed that side of me. And a lot of that was growing up and essentially being told, not explicitly, but the message was very clear, like don't be like that. Like stop being so sensitive over everything. Like stop, wasting my time, like hurry up. Or, like why are you spending your time like doing this or that, right? Creative pursuits, like do things that are more meaningful, more practical. And I think, and we've talked about this, right? I think what we have in common now is like we're rebelling against that because it has been so frustrating to hold that in, to think it's not okay to be feminine or to feel or to like cute things or to be creative. And and finally like we can be at that point where we're honoring those pieces of ourselves again. And it sucks to have to think that I tried to live by other people's standards for a very long time because it wasn't accepted and it was not valued. And being a people pleaser, you want to show that yes, I can, like I don't have to cry over everything or this or that, and then you start to lose yourself. And I don't know, it's just like full circle. I think having the words to come back to like, why was that? Why did I think that wasn't okay? Oh, now I remember. And now I can be more intentional about not doing those things and actually listening to myself more. And man, this is a therapy. What?
But Maren,
it is sad. Go ahead.
Maren, you were saying earlier, like a lot of people think about fight or flight, but you have a tendency to freeze. And, when we look at like the polyvagal ladder and we look at like the fight or flight, and that is autonomic nervous system activation. And I think for me, that people pleasing, like my method was fawning, right? So it was like, I'm going to people please, I'm going to fawn so that, I'm going to act cute or I'm going to act lovable, so that you don't kill me, or, like
Yep.
you don't become a threat to me, or that because I have little power, that you can just wipe me out with, like, I'm basically begging for mercy. And so when I look back at my childhood and realize, like, when I have that visual of I was fawning because I didn't want to die, because I wanted to survive, it just made me so sad. And it gave me so much empathy and compassion for my little self who thought I needed to give all of my power away to other people so that I could just have a level of safety.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it took 40 years, but I'm finally realizing, like you said, Leah, just telling yourself that it is okay to be more feminine. It is okay to just, embrace the cute stuff, or, embrace who you actually are. And giving yourself compassion and self-compassion to be all of those things is kind of taking your control back.
Yeah, my heart is like feeling for little Leah, little Ray, and little Marin,
Yeah.
because we have to live in this stupid patriarchy, capitalistic world, And so reading that description of like the INFJ, how we're not solely motivated by money and climbing the ladders, and that we do have this very vulnerable, like complex inner world. We are sort of misfits, I mean, in the society that we're in. And as Ray said, it's not something to be taken lightly. It's not like we just became people pleasers or repressed our emotions just to be liked. It was actually a survival strategy. We had to do it. We take in those messages as young people, like, this is what I need to do in order to survive, to be safe. And yeah, that's something, I think when I started doing yoga, they had like a mantra, and it would always say, like, you have to feel safe before you can actually feel anything else. Like, you can't feel love without safety. And so I think a lot of what I'm working on is, to create that sense of inner safety for myself, where I feel, like I can take up space. I can, state my opinion, even if you disagree with me. I can show my anger. I can have creative expression. I do not have to be perfect. I do not have to prove myself. It's a constant journey, though. I mean, I don't feel like I'm totally free of that, because we're still living in the world we're living in, and we have to be prepared to, it's almost like once you start breaking out of your shell, you start changing all the dynamics around you. And some people may not like it because they were used to you being, a certain way. So I'm so glad we found each other.
Yes.
Because it said the HSPs are also rare. I think it said 15 to 20%. And so are INFJs. They're very rare. So somehow we connected so we can have our deep chats.
Without time.
And
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on, the Myers Briggs, I feel like it was the first personality test that was kind of out there. And since then, there's like so many different ones. I know there's Enneagram, there's the Strengths Finder. I think there's like a color one. And so, I would always find myself gravitating towards those things when I would be asking myself, like, what am I supposed to do, with my life? Or I was at a career pivot point. But I guess moving into astrology, and I've become like pretty into this. And, I'm not the type that believes like every word of my horoscope. But as Ray was saying, I feel like it gives a language to be able to talk about deeper things and kind of like just get closer to people, just by opening up a conversation. Oh, what sign are you? Oh, are you like this? Are you like that? So I don't like to think of it as like marking somebody or trapping someone within like a stereotype, because I know some of these signs have bad raps. But I like to just think of it as like a conversation starter and a way to get to know other people. So really quickly, I asked for your big three. So the big three is your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising or ascendant sign. And the way I understand it, it's like the sun sign is kind of what you project out into the world. It's like the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And then the moon is your internal life, a lot of your emotions, kind of the underside of it. And then your rising sign is sort of what people might think of you as a first impression, you know, kind of in a glimpse. So I'm a Virgo Libra sun. You both are Libra suns. Me and Leah are both Leo moons, which is a handful. And DeRay is an Aries moon. So we actually all have fiery moon signs. So we're actually low-key fiery, even though on the outside we're these obedient, people-pleasing, you know, types. On the inside, we're actually fiery. So that's interesting. And then I'm a Cancer rising, Leah is a Gemini rising, and DeRay is a Pisces rising. So me and Ray are water signs. And then Leah is a Gemini, which is very social air sign.
What?
So yeah, I know. So I have a very like just amateur understanding of all these things, but it's definitely been an interest of mine. And yeah, it's interesting that Ray and I are both on the cusp. So I'm on the Virgo Libra cusp. I think they call it the cusp of beauty. And then Ray, you're on the Libra Scorpio cusp, the cusp of drama and what was it?
Criticism.
Drama and criticism. So I'm curious if like that's played out in your life at all, because I feel like I was very much a type A textbook Virgo growing up, super perfectionistic, like attention to detail, all of that. And then I think once I got into the working world, it brought more of my Libra side out, which is more of like this social people person, you know, charismatic. That's what is thought of. So I feel like I've leaned a little bit more into my Libra side as I've gotten older, and kind of, I still like things to be a certain way, but I don't stress myself, you know, because I kind of realized like being too much in my Virgo was like causing me a lot of issues and stress. So I've tried to lean into the other side. But, you know, it's weird because growing up, I always did feel this bit of an inner battle. Like I'd be like, I want people to like me, but I also want to have total control and have everything to be perfect. And so I didn't, you know, learn about this until way later. And it does make sense as I look back on my life. So I'm curious for you, Ray, do you see like the two sides?
Yeah.
At all playing out in your, yeah.
Well, so what's very interesting is I'm in a place in my life right now where I'm unmasking, just from so many different things. And I recently had a photo shoot where I did the unmasking. Like I took that as like the theme of the photo shoot, and, you know, hired a photographer and all that. And I'm sort of stepping into this part of me that I've never shared with people, the part of myself that is super critical. And, you know, it's always been me that suffered from the criticism, but I'm sort of not afraid to let that out and be the critic to other people now. And also, I have always loved debate, not necessarily like in the sense of fighting, even though I am more of a pacifist. I don't enjoy fighting, but I do enjoy intellectual banter. I do enjoy questioning things and debunking truths, and not just for other people, but mostly in myself. Like I just enjoy being wrong. I enjoy being told new information. I just enjoy it. And so I am like on my way of creating like a debate club. I'm stepping into this part of myself, the shadow part that I was secretly developing, where I am a bit spicy, I am a bit fiery, I can be very mean, I can be very critical, and I'm not afraid to be unliked anymore. You know, like when I was younger, I really loved being a Libra, and I was always a little embarrassed of being a Scorpio cusp. But now I'm like leaning into my Scorpio, and I'm like, you know what? I'm done playing this like good girl, because I kind of already look like a girl, like a good girl on the outside. I think the first impression that people always have is I'm like naive and like cutesy and sweet, but I'm ready to lean into actually, no, I'm quite sharp. And I know a lot more than you think I know. And I'm ready to lean into that. And I'm no longer willing to sacrifice, I guess, my integrity to play the part of the naive observer anymore. I'm ready to be more active and debate with the world. But
I'm so excited for this new era.
Unmasking.
It's going to be spicy. And when you're talking about that, because your email or your brand is like questionist, and you're like, I love to question everything. But yeah, I think one thing that I misunderstood about, since we all have that Libra element, you know, Libras, I think the symbol is the scales. So it's supposed to all be about balance, and that you're very diplomatic. You're very good with people. You can be a charmer. You can be very flirtatious. Everyone likes you kind of vibe. But it can also, the underside of it is also the scales of justice. So I did learn about the Libra that when it comes to issues of justice, you know, social inequalities, things like that, that it can actually, Libras can be the most fiery of all of the signs in terms of, you know, fighting for the underdog or trying to right wrongs. So that could also be a piece of it as well, that I feel like I'm also tapping into. Yeah, what about you, Leah? Do you identify with your Libra
I
sun?
mean, since I'm not a cusp of anything, it's like all I've ever known. Yeah, growing up, I've always been attracted to beauty and art. And then definitely like even professional work life, super charismatic in terms of, yeah, getting people like who don't report to me to do stuff, but in a fun way, like, you know, building rapport and all that. So I love that stuff. And I guess the one thing that I guess so Libras are about balance and the scales, but also Libras are known for being indecisive. And growing up, I used to be the most indecisive person ever. My mom would say, like, you can buy one thing from the store, and I'd be like, I don't know, this or this. What do I do? And I'd spend like really 20 minutes agonizing over
So
which
cute.
thing I wanted. My sister, Gemini, knew exactly what she wanted. Always. Like, she'd be like, or I don't want anything. She was okay leaving the store without anything. I could never.
Oh, I could never. I would never pass up an offer.
But she'd be like, I don't see anything I like. I'm good. I'd be like, no, like I want this and I want this, but which one do I want more? Yeah, so that was a struggle as a Libra growing up. I feel now that I am more decisive, and mostly because I can't waste my time like that anymore. Yeah, so it's like, okay, like one's gonna be better than the other, or this decision isn't like a forever decision. You know, it's like, what do I want for lunch, right? I also do the studying the menu before we get to the restaurant. And like sometimes I do agonize, but then I've learned to like let go. Like I'll just like pick one and like, or I gave my order, like I can't change my mind. Like just, yeah, like if I don't like it, fine. So I've learned to be more decisive, because when I was growing up, it was just so agonizing. Everything was a struggle.
Yeah, I wonder, I mean, I definitely identify with that too. I've gotten better with it. I wonder if I think part of how Libras are so successful in, you know, being that diplomatic person. I was also that way in my work life. Like I kind of knew the tea on everyone. I got along with everyone, and I was able to maneuver things, as you said, in a fun way, you know? um, but part of it is that, as we were talking about, like we all have that sensitivity where we can read people's energies. And I think when I was younger, like in my teens and 20s, when you're in that social atmosphere, you're trying to fit in with your peers. It's like I could read everyone's energy. And so when people would ask me to like, oh, where do you want to go out? I could not take on that burden. I'm like, how do and I would try, if I had to plan something, I would try to appease everyone. I'm like, okay, I know they like this and that. And, and what's the parking situation. I hate, even if it's like going out with a couple girlfriends, I kind of hate being the one to pick it because I feel this weight of responsibility, and I go on Yelp and I do these deep dives like, okay, do they have a happy hour menu? Like, what's the parking situation? And then I just give up. And I'm just like, I don't even care, because I'm trying to please everyone. It's very hard for me to just go with what I want, even if other people don't want it.
Yeah.
So I feel like that could be kind of the undercurrent of indecisiveness.
Yes. Oh, that hits.
Do you identify with that, Ray?
Totally.
The indecisive part. Yeah, I have a page on Libras. It says actually the sign falls in the middle of the zodiac. So we're like smack dab in the middle. So that's part of the balance piece, that we're very soothing to be around. We have a charming and pleasant demeanor. We're all about peace, harmony, cooperation. And we're actually the cardinal air sign. So I think that means like it's like the purest air sign. And that Libras inspire us to lead with style and grace. They're a balanced beautifier. That's kind of I'm on Astro Style right now. Yeah, I mean, I do. Oh, so we're ruled by Venus. So that's the planet of beauty and romance.
Clearly, I mean, look at us. Just kidding.
They enjoy sharing the finer things in life, art, fashion, a delicious meal with an attractive partner. That's kind of true for me. Kim Kardashian is a Libra.
Okay, not helping our...
Might be a lower expression.
Not helping
lower
our...
I know, I was like, wait a second.
There's gotta be better representation.
And it says that we're ruled by the butt. It says the body part is the lower back or the butt. I mean, that's true for Kim Kardashian. I'm not ruled by the butt. I think I'm ruled more by the gut. The Virgo's more ruled by the gut.
You can't claim Libra for that.
So interesting.
So it says, this is kind of fun. It says, like, on a good day, Libras are charming, lovable, fair, sincere, sharing, and hopelessly romantic. And on a bad day, we're vain, indecisive, melodramatic, manipulative.
Yep.
That's what was funny when Leah was like, in her very innocent way, like, yeah, I just get people to do things for me, but like in a fun way. I'm like, oh, you mean manipulating?
Oh, there's another word for that?
But I totally get it. That's why I don't judge.
Oh, yeah.
And then on a bad day, we're also spoiled and delusional.
Yes.
Oh, I'm very delusional.
I'm very spoiled. I'll admit it.
It says our favorite things are concerts at large venues.
Oh, no.
Poetry, expensive jewelry.
No.
Designer clothes and rich food. I think I like poetry.
I love poetry.
I don't like designer clothes. Or
I like
rich
designer
food
clothes.
or expensive jewelry.
I had a phase.
There you go. She's the
Not
pure
that
one.
yeah, but I mean, I don't go actively buy anymore, but like, effectively, I have like one expensive purse, but I've used it for a couple years now. So I don't feel bad about it.
I mean, I can't lie. I'm a shopper. I have a lot of stuff on my
Art
closet,
supplies.
too.
I buy so much art supplies now.
I'm so frugal. I am so
Must
frugal.
be the Scorpio
fault.
side.
Exactly. That's your Scorpio side.
Thanks, lady.
It says Libras hate duller, practical people, bullies, being pressured to decide.
Yes.
We were just talking about that. I don't know why saying good night. Like, why would you hate that? Hearing the word maybe.
Oh, I hate saying goodnight. Like, I like to stay up late. My husband will go to sleep at like 9.
Oh,
I'll be like, bye. Like, I'm going to stay up for a couple hours. I think,
is that what
I
it
don't know.
means?
That's what comes to mind for me. Like, I like my me time, and like, I get the most of it at night now. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like, especially when I was younger, I came more alive at night.
Me too. But I need my sleep now.
Oh. Well, yes, when you have a
need more
baby,
sleep.
so.
Oh,
Yeah, that will do it.
It says our secret wish is to love and be loved in
Very
return.
true.
Oh, yes. I mean, my whole life has been wanting to feel loved.
Oh. I don't know about this. It says how to spot a Libra: small, symmetrical features, dimples, gentle eyes, and outrageous designer outfits.
Not outrageous for me.
No.
I feel like that kind of describes Ray's face.
Wait,
You have
what?
dimples.
Where?
Small, symmetrical
There it
features.
is. There.
Oh, I guess I
There.
do. I do have
You
dimples.
do have them.
They're dead muscles. Dimples are dead muscles.
Oh my.
But they're
Oh
so
my
cute.
gosh. That's your Scorpio side coming out. We're talking about Libras right now.
Stop critiquing.
That's too Scorpio for us.
I am going to check myself out.
Oh my god, it's hilarious. Where you'll find a Libra dancing the night away at a warehouse party.
No.
20s.
When I was
Yeah,
younger.
definitely in my 20s.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Younger.
Philosophizing about life
Heck
at a
yeah.
coffee shop.
Yes.
That's what this is.
Yeah. Oh, this is so Ray. Tucked away at home writing a novel.
Oh,
even Leah, you wrote a
yep.
book too. Procrastinating?
Yes.
I was a major
I still am.
procrastinator.
Yeah,
When
I
I was-
still am.
Yeah.
But not always.
Happily mingling at a social event.
Wait, what? Happily
no.
mingling at a social?
I mean, I guess uncomfortably
Yeah.
mingling at a social.
No, but I think maybe what people see is that we are.
Yes.
But inside it's like
We're
all
dying
anxious
inside. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's so
Okay,
funny.
that was fun. I mean, yeah, like I do think that I was way more kind of like vain or into the beauty kind of stuff when I was younger, like into fashion. I was always on Pinterest, and I also liked to shop for, I wasn't like a designer label person, but I was more of like a boutique vintage. I would sometimes look on, those Poshmark sites for things. Okay. And then, so I feel like we kind of knew what our sun sign was, but I didn't really know about the moon or rising until more recently. So I don't know if you guys know anything about the moon sign, but I know, so Leah and I share the Leo moon, and I do identify with it. So like Leo's, the sign is a lion. So we're kind of like, that's how I am with my emotions. It's kind of like, as a lion is, it takes me a lot to get pissed off, but when I do, the lion comes out for sure. Because it's just like everything that piles up to it, and I'm just like, oh, and then it's kind of like the last straw for me, and then I get very dramatic about it. So Leos are supposed to kind of be dramatic and kind of have this, maybe want the spotlight a little bit. This is all secret. And I think emotionally I can feel that way. I mean, that's why I love to go like to karaoke and sing the most dramatic ballads. I kind of get that, all my emotions out that way. Do you identify with any of that, or does that resonate with you, Leah?
Honestly, yeah, I think it's funny that you say it as a secret thing, because I think why I'm so attracted to art, and like I always have this vision of like writing a book or being shown in a gallery is for that being able to really express myself and like showcase that. But it's secret. Like I'm not gonna tell people that. Like it's like I want that to happen.
You're like, whatever,
Yes.
I'm casual, but
I'm
secretly,
like, yeah, that's why I'm doing
I want to be
it.
the star.
That's why I like having my presentations at work that I lead, because it's me. Yeah, spotlight's on me. It's my
It's
stage.
your stage, yeah.
I think what I didn't really get.
Here, let me read it.
Okay,
I pulled
yeah,
it up.
sorry.
So, if your moon is in Leo, your emotional self is dramatic, proud, expressive, idealistic, and somewhat
Definitely
self-centered.
self-centered.
You need a lot of love, care, and validation from other people.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the proud and dramatic part. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, what does that mean? Like, give me an example.
Like, do you ever get in fight? Like, when you do get in fights
well,
with
yeah.
people, is it
Of
fiery?
course. But it's rare. But it's rare.
But that's
Yeah,
but that's what I'm
okay.
saying. It's the lion.
Yes.
Like, it takes a lot. Like, the lion is not gonna, get upset over a little fly picking at him here and there.
You're
But then, like,
right.
over
Yeah, the
time-
fights that I have, like everything comes out like over the course of like what happened the last 6 months or something. And I will like have the through line like this, and this happened. So that means this, you know, it's not like the one thing.
Exactly. I'm the same way.
Yeah. Okay.
I pull out the
Oh,
receipts
man.
from years ago, like when I fight with my husband. I'm just like, oh, this reminds me of this. Remember that time and that time and that. This is a pattern. And you know how understanding I was? I let all that go.
Okay. Yes.
I'm that way too, but I don't have my Leo
Interesting. Wait, what's yours?
You have your moon
Can
in
you read
Aries.
that
Yeah.
one? I'm curious.
Okay, so this is how I've seen it put, because actually my husband is an Aries moon, like Ray.
Ah.
So they're both fire signs, and they say like Leo is more like a fireplace. So we're kind of like this stable fire that's kind of running. And Aries is a little bit like a blowtorch. It's like the fire is here and there and everywhere. So whereas the Leo moon, you know, your emotions can be way more dramatic. Like you can let them stew, and then when they explode, it's like a show, you know? And then within Aries, it's like your fieriness, your emotions, they just come up like the wind. Like that's how my husband is. It's like he's angry one minute and then he's over it the next. And I'm just like, what? So that's when we fight, it's like, wait, no. Like if I'm angry, I need a moment, and like I need a stage, and I need to make my presentation. But he'll just get over it so quickly. So that's kind of how I understand it. But here it says, so it says the moon sign, it reflects your personality when you're alone or deeply comfortable. So this is kind of like your secret private self. So if your moon is in Aries, your emotional self is independent, energetic, and enthusiastic. You have a tendency to feel inadequate and overcompensate just because failure is a possibility.
Yes.
I remember you on our last podcast, you used the word inferior.
Yep.
It's right here. It's right up in the astrology chart.
Yep.
So it says actually, and then there's also houses. Like you can get so much deeper with this stuff. So it says for Ray, your moon is in your second house. So that means that you find security and safety through money and material possessions.
Oh, yes.
It could account for your frugality.
Interesting.
Yes,
Tell us more.
I am so frugal. I mean, it takes yeah. So growing up as, you know, the only child of a single immigrant mom, like we were always, and my mother was a freelancer. So we, I guess, never really knew, when her next big project was going to come. And so like, I remember like, you know, not eating the healthiest food for long stretches of time. But then when she would get her windfall, we would go shopping on like a crazy spree, you know? And, you know, my mother wasn't very good at managing money, or at least in my opinion, although she did great things. So I don't actually know. But, yeah, and I seem to be alive and healthy, kind of. So, you know, thanks a lot. I mean, with no sarcasm there to my mother. But...
This is the way you said it.
I'm sorry.
Thanks a lot.
I know. That's why it sounds like it could be not very nice, but thank you very much. There we go. Very much, Mom. But I think that it comes from sort of that trauma of like, okay, we can go through long stretches of not having enough. And I remember just constantly moving. I don't really know the full details of why we moved every single time, but I'm sure it has something to do with like our resources, right? And so I just kind of think like I've always felt like I need to have my financials or like have more stability in that area, I think. And I know that that's kind of a really big aspect in my parenting now too. Like, okay, you know, we have to start a 529 for our daughter, you know, make sure she has enough money when she's going to hopefully go get a college education, hopefully in Massachusetts, you know, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like it kind of fuels that post-traumatic growth of like, I want all of that financial security and make sure that we have enough so that we don't have that lack. And so I'm super frugal. Super
yeah,
frugal.
it's related to your feeling of safety
Yeah.
because it made you feel unsafe as a child.
Right.
Yeah, see, this is stuff is deep. That's why I like talking about this because, you know, there's something to it. Kind of makes you think about your life. So moving on to the rising. Okay, so really quickly, yeah, my rising is Cancer. I come across as gentle, intuitive, warm, though some may regard this as overly emotional or sensitive to criticism. Yeah, I'm all those things. The Cancer is the crab. So, but I find that like Cancer people, they tend to like give off a friendly vibe, and that's why I think my mom was also Cancer rising, and so was my grandmother. So I kind of have an affinity towards that. And again, this is kind of just like the first impression. So Leah's a Gemini, which might account for why you said people kind of mistake you or they're surprised that you're an introvert because you're so you're able to be in those social situations and be very savvy. Let me see what it says here. So for your Gemini rising, it does say that it can become less relevant as you get older. So you come across as quick-witted, chatty, eclectic, and fun, though somewhat inconsistent. You're like inconsistent.
Also, yes.
In conversation, they seem probing and curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's half like I hype myself up. Like if I'm in a new environment or something that I start or I initiate, then yeah, I hype myself up to like be welcoming, be friendly, be this, right? But it's inconsistent for the sake that I'd rather like other people do the talking with each other. But I am probing and curious. Like I want to know about other people, and part of it gets attention off me, while still like learning about someone else.
Yeah, like I think the Gemini is the signs of the twins, so it makes sense that you could be inconsistent because, like you said, you can kind of turn it on.
It is a switch. Also... Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I feel like that's a great rising sign to have because it would make you super popular because you could just be, you know, floating around in your airy way, asking probing questions,
manipulating people, and they don't know it,
being inconsistent, making people do things for you in a fun way.
I love that. The fun way. In a fun way.
Because they want to do it too.
Right. You're just pulling it out of them. Yeah. And then Ray's is a Pisces. It's funny because when I read the Pisces part, it says your ascendant is the mask you present to people, and you're talking about unmasking. So you come across as kind, dreamy, imaginative, and sensitive.
Yeah,
that is totally
that's definitely my first impression of you.
You always have your head in the clouds. A lot of times with Ray, she'll just be like, you're like, oh, did she freeze? No, she's in the clouds right now. She's just thinking.
And your imagination, the connections and the things you say, like, you know, actually. So because this is a podcast and most people are probably listening, not watching. A while ago, the beginning of this podcast, you're talking about how you would imagine yourself as a teacher being successful when you had one-on-ones with students, and you were like, and it's like tabs, you know, and like you were like drawing out like literal tabs, and I could picture it like, yes, like in front of my desktop right now is a bunch of tabs. I don't know, I think that was a really cool analogy, but I love that.
Oh, thank you. You know, that's so funny. My therapist the other day, so she asked me a question, and in true Ray fashion, I was like, okay, the image that I'm getting and the image that I showed was like, so imagine a joystick. And she kind of went like this and was like, I always love your visual metaphors. I can't wait to see where this goes. And so, yeah, I am very imaginative. And it's because I see in pictures, and words for me is secondary. I'm always transcribing what I see. And that's why it takes me a long time to formulate my images into words.
Did you know? I have a coworker, and I just found this out recently. She has I don't know. It's not like a disease or a disorder or anything, but she thinks in words, no visuals. I guess it's a rare thing, but the opposite of you. Isn't that
Yep.
strange?
I'm the complete opposite. Like I think it's not a coincidence that I majored in fine art and, went to grad school for filmmaking because my brain actually works like a camera. Like I take pictures and I see images and patterns. And so, yeah, so I don't know if this is going to make sense to the both of you or anyone listening, but my images are rasterized. And so, they're not vectors. Like I think people use words like vectors, and so it's clear and articulated well. But for me, my words are rasterized because they're actually image sourced, and so I'm always like, I don't know if this is going to make sense, but I'm going to try. And, most people have like the visual side. And so I wonder, and I think most people do end up understanding me, but I would love to talk to your coworker and see if she
She
understands me at all.
she struggled.
That would be hilarious.
Yeah, because she has a hard time just being able to express certain things because it's very literal. And she's like, that's why I'm so glad you're a designer and like I can tell you stuff and then you can create it. And I don't know, Marion, I am curious about this for you because I don't know if it's a Libra thing or just, I mean, not having what Ray has, but I feel very balanced. I feel very balanced using words, at flipping between words and imagery. Like my imagery isn't so, like if I were to imagine things, like I think it's like the right level. It's not like I see like everything like pixel perfect detail, but it's not like blurry either. It's like crisp enough. Like I'm able to like think about something visually and then express it. I mean, because it's my job and like it's like this muscle. And Marin, I'm curious too, like, like being in marketing and being able to like do that. Like, do you feel like equally like visual and like using your words?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm very verbal. Like words come very easily to me because I don't know. I think I have an innate ability, but then always through school, I can read fast. I think and so I take people's words very seriously. And that's sometimes a conflict with me and my husband because he just like loves to be very unfiltered and say a lot of nonsensical things. And I'm like, it would frustrate me so much. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? But now I just kind of let it go. But yeah, I mean, I'm visual. Like I think I have a good eye
Mm-hmm.
artistically for colors and things like that. I can't really think in 3D. Like that's one thing that I'm not great at. Like my husband, he's a visual effects artist and he can think in 3D. I can't really. But I mean, in terms of concepts, with the marketing side of things, concepts, colors, like I kind of intuitively know what works well or what can convey ideas. But it's an interesting thing. Like, I don't know that I necessarily think in images. I might think more like in
Huh.
analogies, which might be more
Yeah.
verbal, where I'm like, oh, it's kind of like this. And I'll paint a picture, give an
Interesting.
example.
Huh.
Yeah. But I mean, I receive and I can express in a visual way, but I don't know that I think in a visual way. Do you
Interesting.
know what I mean?
I wouldn't have gotten that. Okay. But now that you explain it,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I'm very much affected by visuals and my environment. Like, with anytime I move into a new home, I have to really like set things a certain way and then I kind of can finally relax. And even when I used to work in an office, I would have to like move things around, like bring in my own lighting because I just cannot be in there. I'm too affected or distracted if things are not right, like balanced in a way.
Interesting.
It sounds kind of annoying, but it's just the way I think because like we're talking about, we're very
Yeah.
sensitive to all the sensory stuff. So this was super fun. I feel like we all learned
Yeah.
a lot about each other. Um, the only other thing is, and maybe we can save this for another episode. I was curious about maybe we could do more of a deep dive between like us and our
Ooh.
partners with like the astrology thing and see if there's anything to glean from that. So we'll save that for a future episode. But thanks for joining us. If you haven't already, you can follow us at Your Asian Besties on all the social media platforms, and you can subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite listening app. We'd love to know what your personality type is, or your astrology sign, so feel free to DM us or tag us on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, and just tag us at Your Asian Besties. We'd love to open up a conversation. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. Or not see you, but you'll hear from us in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.
Awesome. Okay. All right, I'm going to end this episode.